I think it's interesting that we don't have a hard time working to become better at a skill or to climb the ladder at work or, in these different areas of life. We know it's going to take hard things to get there. But for some reason, whenever we think about marriage, we think that it's supposed to be easy or that whenever it gets difficult that we can throw in the towel. But we don't feel that way about other things in our lives.
Welcome to Crazy Little Thing Called Marriage. I'm Dr. Greg Smalley.
And I'm Erin Smalley. Before we get started on today's episode, we want to say a big congratulations to Maurice and Nancy Eilert.
Yes.
Because they are celebrating their platinum wedding anniversary, which is 70 years.
That's
70 years.
Incredible.
They married in 1955, and Nancy, who is 91, and Maurice, who is 96, credit their long and happy marriage to building on solid foundations. Isn't that sweet?
It is. I could just imagine them walking hand in hand at 91 and 96.
I love it.
I mean, seriously, can you imagine how hot I'm going to look when we've been married for 70 years? Just allow yourself to go there. Feel that gratitude.
I will have gratitude.
Such a hot man.
You will be.
Yeah,
you already are.
So yeah, right. They've done some amazing research over the years, really asking these couples kind of what kept you married for all these years. As you look at that list, Erin, of that research, what kind of stands out for you?
I love maintain friendship and fun.
Yeah.
Because I think that is such a key that keeps us young at heart. And just laughter, so healthy for us and so good because it releases melatonin when we laugh.
Yeah, that whole idea of friendship. We're best friends. We have fun together. We enjoy each other. That's great. As I was looking at the list, open and honest communication. And I get that it's like, really? No, duh. Yeah, that took a whole study to figure that one out. But I think there is something powerful about the kind of communication that we're committed to and willing to do again and again and again because we're always changing. And so when I think about that idea of this ongoing communication, it really means that I'm gonna commit myself to staying updated and current with you because I know, Erin, you're always changing. So I want to keep asking questions and being curious. And let's talk about those things. And then if there's issues that have been brewing or something's going on in our marriage, then we can talk that through. But I think that couples are less likely to talk about the hard stuff if they don't develop the discipline to talk about the easy stuff on a regular basis and really stay current. Because if we lose track of each other, if we start drifting apart, if we're feeling now married roommates, I don't know who you are, you've changed so much, lost track of all that, probably not going to be talking then about the big issues.
Right.
So and that's why these couples who have been married that long really talk about that. That's such an important part to communicate.
I also love showing daily acts of love and gratitude.
Yeah.
Because it's so important to show your spouse that you love them regardless of what is going on.
Yeah.
Because it can become quite conditional. Well, if I'm not happy with you, well, then I'm not going to bring you coffee in the morning, although you don't drink coffee.
No. So that would be okay.
It would be like you bringing me coffee, and if you were mad at me that you wouldn't bring, but there's something to it when you do it regardless.
Yeah.
That is that sacrificial love that we have the opportunity to model in marriage.
Yeah, that's good.
If you know a couple who are celebrating big milestone marriage anniversaries, past 50 years, we would love to give them a shout out. They deserve it. So send us the details and maybe even a wedding picture from their wedding day and a picture of them now. It's amazing to see marriages that can last. And I know that the percentage of couples that are married 50 plus years, it's decreased.
Right.
And we've got to celebrate those long-standing marriages because it inspires us to go, we can do that. We want that too.
These are the marriage champions, and we want to acknowledge them. So send those in.
Yes. On today's episode, we're going to talk about God's design for marriage.
Yeah, this was an incredible conversation. You guys are going to love it. And then later on, we've got more date night disasters, and I just feel so normal. It just warms my heart when people send these in. So we've got some good ones. And then later we're going to answer one of our listener questions. And this person wants to know, when is enough enough? So this is a tough question.
But our guests today are Brandon and Octavia Cormier. Brandon and Octavia pastor Zeal Church here in Colorado Springs. And Octavia also hosts a podcast called With Grace. When we first started chatting, we did a little reminiscing to begin.
One of my favorite stories of all time. So we've known you since, about 2015, I think?
Yeah.
But really where we got to hang out together was we were all doing a donor event, and you guys were speaking, you were leading worship, and you'd been married maybe, about 5 years?
Yep.
And so we had this opportunity to go on a jet ski. So I think you guys went first, and then we were going to trade off.
That part out.
I know.
I don't remember
And
the
that was
jet
my
ski.
first time going on a jet ski.
It was the biggest deal
It was
ever.
amazing.
Like driving herself on a jet ski in the ocean.
Way to go.
Yeah. And so this is a big deal. I was real excited. So we're waiting, and I'm like, what are they doing out there? Like it's our turn. Don't they realize they're supposed to get off? And it just looked like there was a lot of frantic kind of activity going on. So we went out there to find out that your wedding ring had actually slipped off your finger right there.
It did.
As you were getting on and off, whatever. And so I just happened to have a mask. So I ran and grabbed it, came back. and it was like your wedding ring, if I remember right, was black,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And there was all this black coral. And so I'm thinking,
There's no
man,
way. There's
Octavia's
no way.
buying him a new one.
Yeah.
There's no way. And I really, I remember us praying, or maybe it was just me, something about this.
Yes.
So who knows?
It was a prayer.
But just dove down, and it was right there on some black coral, but it just stood out. I saw it, and so I felt like I
amazing.
have kept you guys together
Yes.
for the last,
Solidified the marriage.
right?
know,
The last
just-
10 years,
Yeah.
I
We have
get
you to
this
thank.
credit. Thank
Yes.
you. I mean, God maybe has done whatever, but me helping you find that wedding ring. So that's always my favorite story. So how about beyond, that was 5 years in. So tell us kind of your love story real quick. How did you guys meet and fall in love?
We met at a coffee shop my senior year at university, in college. Octavia was working behind the counter. I was not a coffee shop guy. I was just there.
You
I was
were that
interviewing
day,
That
yeah.
day I turned into a coffee
Came on
connoisseur.
after that.
Come on.
Yes.
Give me all the coffee.
He drinks a
Yeah.
lot of coffee. It's so weird.
So I was there for a meeting with a job interview, not at the coffee shop, just through a third party company that we were meeting there. And I saw her behind the counter. I went, introduced myself, and basically I just kind of told her my name, asked her name, and that was it in that
Showed her
moment,
your
right?
FICO score. And,
Yeah, well, there was a lot to
whatever.
be shared that day. I was asking her, like, hey, who are you? Like, do you go to my college? Because it was a small enough university that I would at least recognize her. I'm
Right.
like, I've never
You
seen her on
should've known her,
campus.
yeah.
And she's like, no, I'm taking a semester off. And I'm like, oh, are you like in trouble for anything? Because at that point I was actually on what was called the disciplinary appeals committee with the vice president, a couple of vice presidents of the university. So I would I would weigh in on allowing students who have been suspended.
Which
you
was
could've
not
saved
me.
her. You
Right.
could've
So I
totally
was
saved
like,
her.
surely if I haven't seen you on campus and you're taking a semester off, are you in some trouble? Because I can help you out, girl. And she was like, no, I'm not in any trouble. And I was like,
I'm
all
a
right.
rule follower.
Yes,
Thank
that's
you very
right.
much.
Yep, me too.
So yeah, that was it. Later that week, I saw her again at the library. She was like talking to a friend of hers that was currently enrolled.
You're not a rule follower if you're talking in the library.
I know,
Come on.
just talking, having big
Exactly.
conversations. And so went up, I took my shot again. And this time a little bit more formally, like, hey, do you want to go with me to this drive-in movie? Because yours truly was the homecoming king, and it was homecoming week.
But what
So-
he left out is that I was also with my mom and my niece, and he thought that my niece was my daughter. So he sent a friend of his over to ask, is that my daughter? Because he was not interested in being anybody's father at that point.
Well, I was 22, and I was like, I'm not signing up to father anybody.
So she came over and said, oh, your little girl is so cute. To which I said, she's not my daughter. I don't have any kids.
Niece.
It's my niece. Yeah.
You
So
hear
then
it
she
way in the
comes
background.
back. Exactly. So I'm like watching, I'm sitting in the computer lab. So I then walk over like, hey, it's me again. Invite her to go to the drive-in movie that week, the part of the celebratory festivities of homecoming for our university.
Fun.
And she was like, no, my mom's in town and I need to hang out with my mom. Now keep in mind, her mom only lives an hour away. It's not like she's from another country.
She came to be with me.
So I was like, well, it's late, the sun doesn't go down until like almost 9 o'clock in Louisiana. Like,
well,
she's old. She'll be in
that's
bed.
what he said. What time does she go to bed?
And literally I said that. And so she was like, no, I just need to hang out. I'm like, So I invited her to come to the homecoming game on Saturday. And all of a sudden, for some reason, she was interested because I said, I'm going to be, passing, getting the scepter and my crown. And it's all deal.
Like,
so once she, like the notoriety,
you may
then she
me.
got interested. Her eyebrows went up and she was there. You came.
I was there.
Yeah.
It's because
in the football stand.
Our friend that was a mutual friend and we didn't know, she invited me to go. So I went and hung out with her. Not because I knew that you were going to be homecoming king.
Well, I told you that I was.
So then, Octavia, what did you think when you figured out
Xerxes,
he was the
king, man, with the golden scepter?
I thought, because he was on, the ground with his suit on and his scepter, and I thought, okay,
royalty,
yeah,
maybe, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you look good in that purple.
Yeah. Actually, the colors of our school colors were purple and white, and so there was lots of purple. And so afterwards, there is a big outdoor event called Boogie on the Bricks. It's kind of like this by this beautiful riverfront. She actually came to that, and that's whenever we started talking, eventually started dating, and then eventually proposed to her, broke up a couple times in there, and then I got back together, and then I proposed, and then we got married in 2010.
And here we are.
Okay.
And here we are.
15 years later.
15 years and 4 children later.
15 years.
Yes.
So tell us, through those 15 years, what has been a difficult experience you guys have gone through or a difficult season that you went through? And what did God teach you through that season?
I'd say the first couple years of marriage was really difficult whenever it came to communication because we are so different in the ways that we communicate with one another, even now. But back then, I did not know how to communicate.
And we didn't have the tools to know how to help each other communicate with one another.
What did that
as
look
well.
like? So for someone going, we don't communicate, like what did that literally look like?
Yeah, we called it rainy days.
Okay.
And so it looked like me just crying at the drop of a dime. Like he could look at me with, he wasn't smiling. And so I would think that I did something wrong or I would just break down and then I would give the silent treatment because I didn't know how to communicate. And sometimes I didn't even know what I was feeling. And so that's kind of how it started out.
Yeah, I think her having expectations of me that she either A, didn't know how to communicate or B, didn't know that she didn't even know how to say it. And so me not having the tools of saying, what do you need from me today? Who do you need me to be for you today?
He would say things like, why are you crying?
Yeah, like what? It was a great day. We're having a great day.
Just in your mind.
Why are you crying?
Yeah.
There's nothing to be crying about right now.
And that worked well?
Yeah.
Or if we're in the middle of a heated argument or something, it's like, okay, great, you're crying now. What am I supposed to do? So you win. We're done because I'm not going to talk to you while I'm making you cry. Okay. And it's like, well, you're not making me cry. So that was extremely difficult because there were a lot of things that we were navigating in ministry. We were also navigating kind of some challenges with extended family and figuring out how boundaries work with our marriage. So because we didn't know how to do that well, that was one aspect that was incredibly challenging because we didn't know. We didn't know that there was such thing as how to fight fair, how to fight well. Like we didn't have the tools for
how
that.
to repair things.
Yeah.
Do you feel like did it for Brandon, for you, did it cause you to feel failed? Like, man, I don't know how to lead. I'm not doing this right. Like,
well, yeah, for sure.
I stink at this thing called marriage. Yeah,
for sure. Because I think that in other spaces, I would consider myself to be pretty well versed in communication, navigating hard, having hard conversations in the workplace, communicating with leaders, family, parents, friends. Yeah. And then it's like, but who? So surely the problem's not me, because in every other space I communicate well. So I'm also like trying to figure that out, and then eventually got to that place of, gosh, I'm failing because I thought that I did this so well, but I don't. I guess I don't know how to do this.
I've been fooling myself all these years. Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, I saw everything through the lens of rejection. And so I always felt hurt by him or unseen. And it's not necessarily that he was doing anything wrong, but in some ways it was my perspective.
That was the message that you felt.
So how did you guys move through that season to 15 years of marriage? Here you are.
Yeah, I think we eventually learned the lesson and the power of leaning into other voices that we really trusted and respected, and saying, hey, we need you to help us. We need you. It seems like you guys do this very well. Will you speak into this aspect of our marriage, which is why we're such major proponents, especially in the local church and faith communities, of, hey, there's no way we're going to figure this out alone. And I think acknowledging the whole marriage isn't bad. It's not like this is just awful every day. Being able to identify every single one of us have parts of our marriage that we just need help in. We need to grow. So it was a few years in, actually about 2 years in, we went to our first marriage retreat. We went to like this overnight, and that was the first time we had done that. And we're like, oh, this is a great idea. I think we should do this every year. What a thought that we would spend a couple of intentional days, not just a getaway, but like actually working on our marriage. And so that's whenever we were first introduced to you guys. There was like a recording, some kind of thing that you guys are doing. We're like, oh, we'll go. Like, we'll spend hours like at this because it's going to be great. And then John and Lisa Bevere, story of marriage, and going through just different ones and being intentional. So then there became a routine of like, oh, annually there's some kind of checkup, on how we're doing.
But also not just checking up and going to these things, but actually taking them back and applying the resources.
Picking something, let's focus on this. Because as we ate lunch together today, one of the things, Octavia, that you said that really struck me was that it feels like there's a younger generation, as they're getting married, they don't really realize the work that's required for marriage. And even saying that, I always feel bad, like I got to qualify going, oh, I love Erin. We've got this, I love the journey. There's so many fun, and there's mountaintop experiences, but there are moments in difficult times and seasons to where it requires work. But I love your perspective as you were talking about, this takes work.
It does.
And they don't seem to understand that for whatever reason. Why is that?
I think it's interesting that we don't have a hard time working to become better at a skill or to climb the ladder at work, or, in these different areas of life. We know it's going to take hard things to get there. But for some reason, whenever we think about marriage, we think that it's supposed to be easy, or that whenever it gets difficult that we can throw in the towel. But we don't feel that way about other things in our lives.
And so true. You think about even learning how to drive. How many hours is required in the state of, it's a lot in the state of Colorado. And then you have to drive with an instructor. But yet in marriage, you're right. Why do we think that, and I hear all the time, if this is hard, it's broken. If it's hard, then this isn't something that can be fixed. But I love your guys' perspective, because you're saying, communication was hard and we learned how to do it. We went to the training and put the time in. And I'm sure that's impacted many areas of your marriage.
And I think the other piece that we forget is that there are two people. So even with the job or driving or sports, it's me working on me. But once you bring another person into the equation, of course it's going to get harder, because they're so different from who we are.
Right. Totally.
And there's you as an individual, Octavia, Brandon, you as an individual, then this thing called marriage. It's us trying to navigate and figure all that stuff out. as pastors, of course, you probably should agree to this or you should say this, but in all seriousness, I mean, Jesus makes a difference. Christ makes a difference in our relationship. How have you seen that play out to be true within your own marriage?
I would say for me, it in so many ways, but being able to be introspective and say, Lord, what do you have to say about this? So if we are at a crossroads in our marriage and we're having a difficult
never.
and we're having a difficult time, if that were to happen, that I can go and I can spend time with Jesus, and there's always something I can learn about me, even if he did what was wrong.
Right.
Like there's always something that I can work on, but without Jesus, I probably wouldn't see those things as quickly or wouldn't be as willing to work on those things without Jesus and him softening my heart.
Because you're right, it takes a humility to go before the Lord, which translates hopefully into a teachability or at least a humility then within the marriage.
And I think too, Greg, it comes down to acknowledging that, gosh, marriage is this supernatural thing, this supernatural gift that God has given. And anything that's supernaturally given has to be supernaturally sustained. And so that connection to Jesus, prayer, seeing what he models for us in Scripture, and then following those who are wiser than us, who are farther along in the journey, you begin to realize, it takes a supernatural amount of grace and the power of God if we're going to do this in its ideal state, like the way that God dreamed of it, which I think all of us would have this desire. I don't think anybody in their right mind signs up and says, gosh, I want to have an awful marriage. I want to have a subpar, And so if you take that mindset, like,
I want to find
that sounds like awesome work, But it's like, whenever you put Christ at the center of it, then you begin to realize, he is actually committed. He's committed to this marriage as much, if not more, than I am. And so he'll never leave us. He'll never forsake us. So I would say that's how it kind of helps to reframe marriage.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, for me, we were talking a little bit about this before, but just I love how the scriptures, which I've read, through before. I mean, I love the scriptures, but just how fresh they can become in any given moment. And, seeing, we were talking about Ephesians 5:26 and 27, which we encourage you read that and tell me what you think it means. Because the language there, just words that I typically would never use or don't really connect with, but putting in some work, like you guys are talking about, to go, okay, there's got to be a reason why this is in the Bible.
Yes.
Like they probably just don't have some filler verses.
Accidental verses.
Right. But learning that when the Apostle Paul is kind of saying, hey, this is how Jesus shows up with his bride, the church.
Yes.
And he's describing that he's nurturing her, doing all these things, like you were saying, that we're being told, like as a husband.
Right.
So that she can become the best version of who God created her to be.
Yeah.
So there's this cool vision of going, okay, I want to invest in Erin, nurture Erin so that she becomes the best version of who God created her to be, so that God can unleash her.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, the Great Commission was unleashing Jesus' bride, the church.
Come on.
I mean, 2,000 years, look what's happened.
Yeah.
And I think that's given me a new vision that I just haven't had. Well, I'm married 33 years. Wow. And I never got that. And that's what I love about the Bible, is that what you think you know and what you've studied and maybe ignored because you didn't get it, man, there's meaning there that can just rock your world. And that one has rocked my world.
Absolutely. As you guys have worked and counseled couples, what are the main issues you're seeing coming up?
I would say 2 off the top of my head. I would say selfishness. Like, I don't want to serve him. I don't want to change. I don't want to, you fill in the blank. And laziness. I don't want to put forth the work that it's going to take. I want it to come easily.
I have a sloth marriage.
Yes.
That's one way to put
it. And so I would say those are 2 things that I am seeing a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I think pairing with that, I think in today's day and age, between the culture wars and my favorite social media influencer, I think there's just a lot of confusion in terms of a husband and a wife and what our distinct roles and responsibilities before the Lord are. And it's not like, okay, we just kind of need to go back to, we're in a postmodern stage, so we kind of need to go back to modernity. Not so much. I don't even see that as a solution, but the idea of what is it that God is expecting from the husband and what is he expecting from the wife? And I think in a day and age,
not talk about those.
Well, not at all, because it's like, oh
submit,
goodness, right? And I think there's such a fear around that. Well, avoiding it isn't helpful because then we have a complete imbalance in our marriage, because it's like, no, there's always a leader. Like there's someone that God is holding responsible always in any institution. And I'd love to say he's holding us equally responsible. Yes, we are equal in terms of what we bring to the table and our identity before God. But in our responsibilities, Scripture is very clear about what God expects from the man, from the husband, and what he expects from the wife. And I think that's led us to a place of a lot of men abdicating their role and their responsibility to be the priests of their home, to lead, even in like really strong, godly, couples. And it's like, hey, are you like leading your wife? It's like, oh, I don't want to dominate. No. We need to look at what Christ has told us about leadership, because if you're overbearing, you've lost nobody's following you anyways, but what does that actually mean? So I'm seeing a lot where I'm having to disciple and
explain
really pastor men into like, no, lead your wife, sir. Lead your children. So and that's probably confusing. The biggest one. It is.
Because even Erin and I, we did a survey here at Focus on the Family, where we had an opportunity to ask, get a bunch of feedback, and we asked about leadership, just simply like, what does that mean? What does that look like? And what was fascinating is that the predominant answer was, who makes the decision? and which I would argue, I mean, we need to make decisions, but that I don't think me just saying, well, I'll make the decision is the leading, but it's like that's what we've boiled down.
Yes.
Leadership as a husband within marriage to who makes the decisions. Okay, I'll ask Erin for her thoughts, but at the end of the day, I'll make the decision.
I am pretty quiet, so.
That made me uncomfortable just saying it that way. But I think you're right that there's a lot of misunderstanding. It's a very uncomfortable topics, submission, leadership, like what does that mean? What does that look like?
But it runs countercultural to the world,
totally.
Which isn't that the way it's supposed to be as Christ followers, as true followers of Jesus? Shouldn't it be different? Shouldn't everything we do be a little bit different than the world?
Yeah, in operating inside that design, that's a big deal. It's there, to really understand that, and that's what I was saying. For me, as the leader in our family, it's given me such a new vision to go, well, actually, the things that I want to do, I want to help her become that best version of who she is, to see how God wants to use her and unleash my wife, right? Like it's not domineering, it's not dominating over. It's actually, at the end of the day, I want to know, Erin, being married to me, did that make a difference in your life? I mean, I hope the answer is yes.
Absolutely.
Like for the better.
I wasn't really asking,
a difference in the positive.
Right? Like that at the end of the day, as a husband, I want to know that God used me in that I did make a difference.
But don't you think, because often we don't understand what these roles are, that we just avoid them?
Sure.
And because the fear, I think, for women, if I'm going to submit, well, that means I don't have a voice.
Right.
And I'm silent.
It's so interesting that you say that. We were just having a conversation with our 12-year-old last night.
12-year-old daughter.
And we were talking, and she said, well, my Bible teacher said that I'm not supposed to marry someone that's not a believer. And I'm like, yeah, come on, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And so I said, you want someone that believes the Bible so that he can lead you. And she said, I don't want a man leading me. And I said, let's talk more about that. And I said, do you not think that daddy leads me? And she was like, no, you lead equally. Like, I don't want a man leading me. And so Brandon said, I think we need to redefine what a leader looks like in the Bible for you. I think your definition is off. And so for us to be able to model that in our own home so that our daughter doesn't grow up thinking that is domineering, let me put my thumb on top of her, she can't make a decision without me.
Right. So good.
What it means, right, at all.
But I think that's indicative of this generation. Like, these are the conversations from 12 to, like, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, like, we have such a responsibility of modeling something in a healthy way while holding true to Scripture, to what God said. And so as we're having that conversation, it was like, hey, love, we are Christians. We follow Jesus. We don't care what society or culture is saying.
Or how you feel.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was like, let's feel whatever you want. And so it's like, hey, Dad is the leader of this home, correct? Oh yeah, and it's kind of like, well, yeah, you're an anomaly. It's like, no. Like, this is the norm. This is the standard, and you can have this one day as well. And maybe your friends grew up in a different home, see things differently, but we follow Jesus around here, and we want you to have a marriage that's Christ honoring as well. So
so good.
Well, and maybe the question then is what does that really look like? Maybe Brandon, as you think about leadership, like what's the evidence? So if a husband is really operating in that role in a way that's glorifying the Lord and in lifting up, helping his wife become the best version of who God created, or what would that look like? And then maybe Octavia, as you think about submission in what does that really look like? Yeah,
I think it starts with this idea. I would agree with John Maxwell. Just always kind of said this leadership quote, like, leadership is influence. And I think that as husbands, we have to see ourselves as the chief influencer in our homes and in our families. And it is a weighty responsibility. I'll often tell the men at our church, and even as I talk to other pastors, like, goodness, like, being a good husband, yes, there's the grace of God that comes, but it should be a little bit tiring. Like, whoa, like that was tiring. Like, that took a little bit of work. That's part of who God has made us as men. And so I think, number one, what impact is my influence spiritually, socially, emotionally having in my home? And I think if we start of like there,
just making decisions.
Oh my gosh,
like,
yes. Like, what?
Wow.
Like,
it's more than that.
Because it's what are my daily disciplines like? What does my time with God look like? Because as the leader of the home, oftentimes the responsibility is to model, this is the priority that we as a family, or we in this marriage, this is the priority we place on faith, on church, on being generous, on being kind to those around us. And I think with the whole submission thing, it's like, yes, the Bible also says submit one to another. So there are areas in which I'm like, hey, I just want to submit this to you. You can never go wrong. It's like if you try to out-submit one another instead of dominate one another, I think you'll never lose as a husband and a wife, because then it's like we submit to one another as we submit to the Lord. And then practically what it looks like, and it's so rare that it happens, but if we are at an impasse, then Octavia will say, you know what? I trust your leadership. It's not this begrudging, like, well, I guess I got to drag my feet and go. Well, I haven't led her well. Like, I haven't led her well if she's responding that way. I haven't earned the right to say, I want to make this decision. This is what I feel like we should do. And I think there's this joy that she finds in those moments of, all right, Lord, like, I trust you and I'm going to honor you in that way.
Well, because I know you're not just throwing your weight around to make a decision, and I can look at the decisions that he's made in the past to see that they're always for our family's good. They're always to honor. They're always to bless. And so even if I don't necessarily agree or understand his way of thinking about something, I know that ultimately, he's answering to Jesus. But also I can look at his track record and see he's always choosing good for our family. So for me, it's easy to submit to him, number one, because I know that he's submitted to the Lord, but number two, I know that he's always choosing our family.
Mm-hmm. What do you say to the wife who says, my husband hasn't shown up in a respectable way?
Yeah,
I hear that a lot.
Not doing all the stuff you just laid out.
Yeah. What do you say to her?
I think that you can still respect, or you can still treat someone with honor that's not behaving honorably. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not yelling at you. I'm not cussing. I'm not fussing. I'm not talking bad about you to the kids. Mm-hmm. Hey, how about I be the watchman on the wall and I'm praying in our marriage and I'm doing my work, because I'm not responsible for Brandon.
Right.
I can't change Brandon. I can't do any of that. But what I can do is I can show up being the best version of me.
Yes.
I can show up submitted to God and submitted to him. And then I can just trust, Lord, you're going to work those things out. But I can't ask the Lord to change things in his life if I'm being stubborn and I just want things my way. So I would say to that woman, evaluate where you're at. And so many times, not always, but so many times, if I'm treating him with honor and respect, it's hard for him not to shift.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean he will, but
right.
I like that encouragement.
But at the end of the day, even if he doesn't, I know that I did what I was supposed to do. And I can say to the Lord, hey, I did what I was supposed to do in that, regardless of what he does.
Yes.
That's
so
good. I always say that, like, I have never a right, nor would I ever talk to Erin about her submission. Like, that's between her and the Lord. Like, as a husband, I have no business. In the same way, like there's that temptation to, well, I don't like how you're leading, or like, I think these are the roles that God has given. That's between me and the Lord. Yeah. And because it's not my job to tell her what this is going to look like. It's my job to encourage and to sacrifice and to do all those things.
And to pray.
And to pray. I mean, all of that. Washing you with the word. I mean, there's so many things. Yeah. What I love about what we're talking about is I talk to guys about this, going, it's not just about making decisions, it's about leading. So evaluate the different areas of your marriage. Like, am I leading out pursuing Erin emotionally? Am I leading out pursuing us having time together? Am I leading out when we need to repair maybe a hard conversation or a conflict issue? Like, you could just think about the areas of your relationship, and as a husband go, how am I leading in those things? Because that was convicting to me, because I realized, I like to make the decisions, but there's other stuff that I'm not leading at all around those things.
I think another thing is, for a woman, are you difficult to lead? Because so many times women say, well, I want him to lead and he's not being the man of God that he's supposed. And it's like, well, give him space, give him room to maybe grow into the leader that God has created him to be. But how easy are you to lead?
Totally. Because so often when we don't perceive that he's leading the way we would lead, we take over. And again, we have so much influence. I say this all day long. We have so much influence in this relationship. And based on how we show up, that's going to influence as well how he shows up. He may not change, but I have influence, and I'm going to use that for good.
That is very good. It is true. One of my favorite stories in the Old Testament is a very little known story that we often even miss, because it's just very short, about the Shunammite lady and her husband. We never even know their names. And they create a room in their home for Elijah. So when he would come through, they're blessing him, but he blesses them by giving them a son. So she gets pregnant, and then a few years into that, the boy actually dies. And so there's this great kind of showdown to where the wife, and I mean, they're both grieving, I mean, as we would with our son dying. And she says, I'm going to go talk to Elijah. Almost like he said that he was going to bless us with a son. He just died. Like, that's not okay. Like, he needs to make this right. And you could tell the husband's like, we probably shouldn't bother him. And it's not a Sunday. It's not the Sabbath. Like, almost like, you know what? Our son died. Let's grieve together. Let's bury him. And she was like, no, I need you to give me a servant and a donkey. And I'm going to bring this dude back. And he's going to make this right. And the husband's like, I don't think we should bother him. But he ultimately accepts her influence. and says, okay, here you go. And of course the story plays out, she brings him back and he raises their son from the dead.
Yep.
So I love that notion. I think it's such a great word. How do we really influence each other and accept the influence of our spouse? Well, I had no idea that this is where we were going to end up going. This was not in our note. There was not a question about this, but I just love how God shows up, and this is what we needed to talk about.
Yes.
Totally.
And so grateful for the wisdom, for the examples that you guys provided on what does this look like within our marriage. So thanks you guys.
Of course.
Yeah, thanks for being with us.
Absolutely.
So welcome.
Well, I got to tell you that conversation went in such a different direction, which I love.
Totally.
We were supposed to talk about leadership and submission, and they did such a great job. And I love their perspectives on that.
Totally, and they're both so well spoken.
Yeah.
And animated.
Yeah.
Especially Brandon.
Yeah. But it was fun hearing about their love story. I haven't heard that. And I appreciate just their willingness to say we have had some challenging moments and seasons, and kind of here's what God did, and here's what we learned. Kind of for you, if they had put us on the spot and turned the question around, directed it at us, kind of as you think about our 33 years of marriage, what challenging season kind of stands out, and what do you feel God taught you?
I would say probably the most challenging season is when we adopted our youngest daughter and brought her home, a 3-year-old little girl who was ripped away from everything she knew, so traumatized from all of it. And then our family coming together and rallying, but also having to figure out the new norm.
Yeah.
Like, what does this mean for our family? And I mean, we went through some hard days. Remember the days of her just standing in the living room screaming in the midnight and scare the crud out of us. And we finally...
I'd wake up with that eerie feeling like someone was looking at me, or there was someone there, and I would open my eyes, roll over, and I'd go, ah, because there she would be standing. And I'd be like, what are you doing, Annie? Why are you standing here in the dark staring at me?
Do you remember we got Google Translate out? And this was Google Translator was brand new.
Because we adopted Annie from China.
Yeah. And we had it say in Mandarin, stay in your crib. I don't know that actually helped.
Which
but
made no difference.
Yes. Yeah. But then the adjustment was we figured out she doesn't want to be sleeping alone because she was sleeping with other kids in the room with her orphanage. Yeah. So we put her crib in our room and she slept. Yeah. And boy, sleep makes such a difference.
It does.
It's such a difference. And then we moved to Colorado. And I just remember it was just a long, hard season, but we all grew because of it. And I truly believe that it impacted all of our kids, all 3 of them for good. Yeah. And impacted us for good too. Yeah. But I will say, I just saw a picture. We went to Disney World and it had been, I don't even think it had been a full year. It was, we brought her home in July. And in April, we went to Disney World. And I remember when we were in Disney World and we were all having fun together, I remember thinking, we're going to be okay. Yeah. Ugh, it makes me cry. Yeah. Because we were, and we were stronger because of it. Yeah. But it really, I saw the picture just on Facebook. This is what made me think of it on a memory that we were going to be okay. Yeah. That we made it.
I love that. I love your tender mama heart. Because that was hard.
It was very hard.
She was so attached to her nanny for the first 3 years of her life. She didn't have a dad, so when we brought her home and when we were in China picking her up, I mean, it cost her nothing to connect with me, but it cost her everything to open her heart to you. Right. And that was a hard season. Yeah. I mean, there was some time that she wanted to not connect with you. I was trying to figure out, how do I say that very respectfully? It was hard. Yeah, I remember just feeling helpless. Like, I don't know what to do. I'd be holding her and she'd just be hugging me, kissing me on the cheek, saying, Daddy, I love you. And then she would just glare at you. And I was like, please stop. You're causing massive friction between your mom and your dad. Please stop.
And I remember before we left to go and get her, this very wise woman came by our house and she said to me, I want you to say, I forgive you in Jesus' name, out loud, anytime Annie hurts you.
Yeah, because we're like, she's not going to hurt us.
It's like, she's 3. How is she going to hurt me? And little did I know, because of her grief, there was a lot of hurt and rejection. And I would say each time, I forgive you in Jesus' name.
Yeah.
And it kept my heart soft and pliable. So when she was ready, I was open-armed and ready to receive her.
That day, because you would take her and our older kids to the pool.
Yeah.
And just swim, and she wouldn't jump to you.
No.
But there was that, I think finally that day that you put, because you were faithful and always offering, your open heart, you'd literally put your arms open. Annie, jump to mama.
The girls would say, Mom, just let her jump to us. And one day they said, Mom, stop. And she looked at them, her little 3-year-old voice, looked at them with her little finger pointed, and she said, no, I want mama. And she jumped into my arms, and that was it. I called you at work and was like, I don't know what just happened, but I'm in.
I was out.
And it's it kind of has been that way since, but I will say she's become quite a little daddy's girl through her teenage years, which has been fun to watch.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of serves as like an analogy in a lot of ways for marriage. I mean, we need those same deep roots. We need that attachment, that deep connection. And if that's what you long for in your relationship, boy, we have a brand new resource. You're going to love this. It's called The Deep Rooted Marriage. So it's cultivating intimacy, healing, and delight. It's written by Dan Allender and Steve Call.
Yeah, and Dan and Steve are both marriage therapists, and they realize that every relationship has seasons, highs and lows. In this book, they point out how God is inviting you and your spouse to partner with him on a faith journey with hope and transformation. And so whatever you've dealt with, I just think of the long-term marriages, there's lots of opportunities to go deeper still, to forgive, as well as to celebrate the amazing adventure that we are on together. So we encourage you to consider getting The Deep Rooted Marriage, and you can get that. Just click the link in the show notes, and we'd be happy to send that to you for a gift of any amount.
And when we use that phrase, a gift of any amount, all we mean is that we want to see you have that resource. So maybe you're in a season to where you're like, I can't afford that. Hey, we want to put that into your hands. Maybe you're in a season to where you're able to support Focus, in a bigger way. And we're so grateful for that, because it helps us to do podcasts, to make resources available for you. So again, wherever you're at, follow that link in the show notes, and we'd love to get you that Deep-Rooted Marriage resource.
I'm so excited we get to do this fun segment again, Date Night Disasters. Last night, we did not have a date night disaster. We went on a date night, and we actually had a lot of fun. But the most interesting thing of the night,
which was almost disastrous.
Yes, almost, was Greg ate bone marrow. And I don't quite know what to make of that. I know a lot of you are going, that's great. We love it. Greg has never eaten it before. I did not even try it. No. But you did. You put it on bread.
Yeah, it was from a steak restaurant. So it was just a big cow thigh bone or something.
Yeah, it looked like a femur.
Yeah, something. They saw it in half, and they prepared the bone marrow. I've never seen that offered on a menu, so my friend and I, it was his birthday, were like, we've got, on your birthday, come on, let's try it. It was actually really good. I was surprised, because I was thinking, if this goes poorly, this is going to be a disaster. My stomach will be a disaster zone.
Totally.
But it was actually really good. And what I loved about the date night was actually, you and I had been very, very busy throughout the day, and you were tired. I know I was tired.
Yeah.
And so the drive over there was just good, because it kind of started off a little bit in silence. And then it felt like we started to warm up and started to talk, started to laugh, started to connect. And I feel like that's reality. Like, we talk about going out on date nights. Certainly they can create disasters, but really it requires almost an easing into the connection. We can't just, be worn out and exhausted and think, oh, we're going to have this fun, lighthearted conversation.
All of a sudden, yeah.
And so I was aware of that going, oh, this feels awkward. This feels kind of weird. We're both tired and silent. And then we just warmed up. And by the time we got to the restaurant, we'd had good discussion and ready to hang out with some friends and have a fun kind of double date. It wasn't a huge disaster, but we've had disasters before.
Totally.
And that definitely does happen. And we just ask you, when it happens, please send us your date night disaster. And the ones we're about to hear, these are awesome.
So I decided to have a candlelight dinner with my wife, but I lit too many candles, and soon we are dealing with a little bit of a fire hazard. Some of the candle wax leaked onto my mother's antique tablecloth and completely ruined it. There was so much smoke in the house that my wife's asthma kicked in, and she spent the evening then on a nebulizer. Needless to say, we threw out all of the candles.
So I tried to host a group dinner party for our young marrieds' date night to include a little socialization, but it turned out terribly. So first, the dish I cooked exploded in the oven, setting off the smoke alarm, and one of the guys burned his hands trying to put the fire out in the pot. Then someone spilled red wine on my white carpet, followed by our dog getting sick on the living room floor, which caused one of the other guests to almost vomit. The night ended with us ordering pizza and the promise never to do a group date night ever again.
Oh, those are great. lots of
Yeah.
chaos, it sounds like.
It's just funny to hear them because we've all been there.
Totally. I love that they ordered pizza.
Yeah, right.
I mean, at least it was salvage. They got dinner.
Yeah, we just encourage you guys on your dates, just give each other so much grace. You know, inevitably something might go wrong. I mean, even
Totally.
for us, you know, having bone marrow was just different.
Yeah.
And so when we disagree or when we get frustrated, irritated with each other, just really commit to protecting your date night and just put that stuff aside. Say, you know, we'll talk about this later. Endure the moments of awkwardness as you guys start to reconnect. Like kind of Erin and I had to endure the tired silence, that awkwardness, and we were able to eventually warm up to each other. So if you guys protect those times, disaster or not, yeah, that's going to help you guys make that memory.
Totally. So send us your stories so we can laugh with you, not at you, with you.
We promise.
Yes, just go to the show notes and leave us a voicemail.
Well, let's move on to our weekly Q&A.
We're thankful and honored that you're trusting us by sending us your questions.
It really is true. I mean, we feel so humbled that you're reaching out to us. We hope that we're giving you some good things to think about as you work through conflict or miscommunication or really whatever's going on in your relationship.
So today's question is from Bailey, and it's a tough one because she clearly is hurting.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Bailey from Nebraska, and I just have a question on how do you know when enough is enough? I have been separated from my husband for about 9 months. I found out he was talking to another woman after I had already caught him and asked him to stop. And so I left the house. I have been doing counseling and trying to make things work, but he is not at all willing to work on anything. He tells me that I'm manipulative and that I am spreading rumors about him, and I just talk about him behind his back all the time.
Bailey, thank you so
Yeah.
much for your vulnerability, for
Yeah.
asking this question, because I know that you are not the only one in a circumstance like this.
Yeah, our hearts just break for you, Bailey.
Yes, it's difficult.
Yeah, and Bailey, the place that Erin and I would kind of start is just to say this, that Erin and I would never feel that we have the right to tell you when enough is enough. That's really between you and the Lord, and solely between you and the Lord. And if anybody's willing to say, oh yeah, it's time, or you need to do this, just be very cautious about that, because this is you will know when enough is enough when when you really, as you pray and seek God's wisdom in that, as you're talking, asking for wisdom like you're doing now, I think Erin and I can give you some things to think about, but we're not going to tell you, oh yeah, leave him, or no, stay with him.
Yeah, and I want to say this, that oftentimes when people hear that, it's between you and God. God will tell you, I'm promising you, I have had plenty of people walk into my office and say, this is what God has said to me.
Yeah.
This is what I'm feeling led toward. And I do believe that it is God speaking to me, not audibly, but speaking to me in my heart and telling me enough is enough.
Yeah. So maybe some things, Bailey, to consider, to take to the Lord as you're really praying, seeking wisdom, trying to decide. One would be just, the fact that your husband is refusing to engage in any sort of help, repair efforts. I mean, he's not willing to go to counseling, work on the relationship. You're trying, you're willing. I mean, that Bailey, that's a huge red flag. I mean, if you guys are going to recover and restore your relationship after the infidelity, that requires both people to really commit to rebuilding that trust and doing the work as individuals as well as a couple. And the fact that he continues to dismiss counseling,
right,
that's a big problem.
Well, and not only that he
fair.
dismisses counseling, he's also deflecting and blame shifting.
That's true.
Because he's accusing you of being manipulative or spreading rumors. I don't know if there's evidence or not, but it's diverting the responsibility of how he's contributed to this away from him.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it aligns with a behavior that we call gaslighting. It's really allowing him to avoid responsibility and accountability.
Right.
And
you can't build safety and trust that you need to move forward.
Right.
If he's just going to blame and put all this back on you. And Bailey, it's not okay what he's doing. I mean, what he's doing, it sounds like the past infidelity, or even how he's showing up right now, that's not okay. That would be a place where Erin and I would say 100%, what does the boundary need to look like? Because we always put boundaries in place to keep our hearts open. And Bailey, honestly, Erin and I would say your greatest fight in all this is not trying to figure out when enough is enough. It's actually fighting to keep your heart open. Because a lot of times when people go through exactly what you're facing, over time you just get so tired and so frustrated, and you're exhausted to where your heart begins to close and it eventually hardens. And then you're done. And then, I mean, that's what Jesus talked about in the New Testament in Matthew, that Moses permitted you to divorce because of the hardness of your heart. And that's what you're really guarding against, going, what boundaries do I need to start putting in place in my marriage so that my heart stays open, so that I can be available if God is able to touch and reach his heart, and now he has a change of heart and he's willing to go do the work. I mean, you don't know. That may not happen, or that may happen, but usually what we see is that eventually someone's heart hardens, Bailey, and that's what you want to fight for, because you don't want that. And so, putting a boundary in place and saying, I'm not willing to continue in this relationship. Maybe we need a healing separation. Erin wrote a fantastic article, Bailey, on this. So we're going to stick that in the show notes. Erin will walk you through what is a healing separation, how do you do that, the purpose, and to be able to have a counselor help you do that.
And he may or may not be willing to do that. Right. It sounds like he's pretty resistant to that. So it really is,
it's not up to him,
recognizing
it's her heart.
Are the efforts one-sided? These are things I would be considering. Has the trust that's been broken, is there a willingness to work at that, to heal and to repair? And also, how is this impacting you, Bailey? How is your overall well-being being impacted? And so, again, we're not here to tell you, yes, pursue divorce, no, don't. I would say, really start asking yourself, reflecting on some of these questions, as well as seeking advice from others, pastor, mentors, even legal advice to understand financially, what does this look like? And so it's really being prayerful and asking others to enter in with you that are safe, others that can hold your confidence and support you and pray for you as you await, what is the Lord calling me to?
Yeah. Well, why don't we do that right now, Erin? Would you pray for Bailey?
Yes, Jesus, we come before you, and I lift Bailey up to you and just ask, Lord, that you're close to her broken heart. As well, Lord, that you are guiding and leading her. Give her amazing insight, wisdom, discernment, and Lord, align her heart with yours. Jesus, speak clearly to her what you're calling her to. Put individuals in her life that can support her and guide her and lead her into your truth. Lord, we know that she is your precious daughter, that she has great value. And Lord, part of this is also honoring her in the mix. So Jesus, I know that you'll be faithful. Lord, we love you and thank you for protecting Bailey and providing everything she needs.
Bailey, we are so grateful that you were courageous enough to send in your voicemail.
Totally.
And a lot of times we send the book Crazy Little Thing Called Marriage, but we actually want to send you, it's a book that a colleague and I wrote called The 9 Lies That Will Destroy Your Marriage and the Truths That Will Set You Free.
It's a great one.
Because it's everything we've learned from our Hope Restored, our marriage intensive. And so, Bailey, our prayer is that, boy, God willing, that there's an opportunity down the road for you and your husband, if he's willing to go to a Hope Restored and spend that time with those counselors and really see God do an amazing miracle. But if he's not willing, we will send you that book because it's going to teach you the things that we've learned over time that really helps couples who are in crisis. So truly thank you for your question. Well, thank you for joining us on Crazy Little Thing Called Marriage.
Yes, thank you for following the show and sharing it with your friends and family. We want you to have a seat at the table every week as we help equip you and your spouse to have a lifelong satisfying marriage.
Yeah, we want to see you guys growing spiritually as individuals and as a couple because Jesus makes such a difference in our relationship.
So that you can invest in other couples to help them build thriving marriages.
Well, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again next Monday about this crazy little thing called marriage.